The night begins quietly, almost hesitant, like the world taking a slow breath before resting. The air feels even and soft, carrying the faint hum of stillness that lingers when everything else has settled. A distant sound, perhaps the slow spin of a fan, perhaps the whisper of wind through a half-open window, adds a rhythm so steady it becomes part of your own breathing. The light around you is low and kind. It doesn't ask you to see, only to stay. Rest your mind. The journey begins in silence. Let your shoulders drop. Let your thoughts loosen. The day is behind you now, folded neatly into silence. There is no hurry left, no task waiting to be done. You are simply here, listening as the world eases itself into quiet. Tonight's journey moves without urgency, through moments that once belonged to different centuries. They are not the grand scenes of history, the wars, the kings, the declarations, but the gentle hours in between where ordinary people lived, ate, laughed, and endured. The rhythm of life that never made it into books, yet somehow survived in memory. We will begin in a small medieval village where the smell of wet soil and barley fills the morning air. There, a wedding unfolds, not the polished kind with gilded halls and silken gowns, but a simple gathering under open sky. The guests arrive with muddy boots and hopeful hearts. The bride wears her best dress, though it has seen many harvests. Someone brings a jug of ale, another a sack of turnips. The celebration is rough around the edges, full of laughter and noise, yet gentle in spirit. For a single day, work pauses and joy becomes communal. From there, we drift farther back, to an evening in ancient Greece. A group of men reclines on long couches arranged in a circle. The lamps burn low. The wine, mixed with water, glows faintly in bronze cups. They speak not of conquest or politics, but of ideas, beauty, virtue, love. Between verses of poetry, someone plays a soft melody on a flute. Laughter hums through the room, unforced, unhurried. This too is a kind of peace. The art of speaking slowly, of thinking out loud while the night deepens. The air shifts again, warmer now, scented with oil and lotus. Along the banks of the Nile, the day begins differently. Men and women bathe before sunrise, their movements precise and rhythmic. Faces aligned with dark kohl, hair carefully shaved or hidden beneath wigs woven from plant fiber and perfumed wax. To them, cleanliness is not luxury but devotion, a harmony between the body and the world. A polished mirror catches the early light. A drop of scented oil melts on the skin. Every gesture is quiet, deliberate, and ancient. And then, further west, another shore, another century. Wooden ships creak into a river's mouth, carrying people who have left everything they knew. They step onto foreign soil, wet, hot, alive with insects and promise. They build rough shelters and call the place Jamestown. Life here is not gentle. Hunger, fever, and long work days press against every breath. Yet among them, something takes root. A small fire of endurance, of beginning again, even when the earth refuses to be kind. In that fragile persistence, a new rhythm of history begins. Each place, each fragment, belongs to the same quiet current, the one that runs beneath all human life. The desire to gather, to speak, to clean, to build, to belong. The hands change, the languages change, the tools evolve, but the motion remains. It is the motion of living, soft and circular, looping from one age to another. So, as you listen, do not strain to remember or to learn. Let the scenes drift as they wish. The medieval laughter, the Greek voices, the Egyptian perfumes, the wooden fort by the river. They do not compete. They simply coexist in the long hum of time. The night is here to hold them all, to hold you too in its slow and steady breath. Feel it settle around you, calm and weightless. The world outside still turns, but within this small space, nothing demands attention, only the sound of quiet unfolding. You can rest now. The journey begins, not to teach, not to rush, but to let you drift through the gentle pulse of history, where every life, every ritual, every whisper once carried the same heartbeat that you carry tonight. Medieval peasant weddings, community, food, and simple joy. The night settles softly over the village, wrapping every roof in a thin veil of mist. Somewhere, a faint echo of footsteps crosses the dirt road, and with them, the first whisper of news. It doesn't come written or sealed. It moves from mouth to mouth, from the well to the mill, from the baker's hearth to the barley fields. Someone says it quietly, almost like a secret too ordinary to hide. Thomas is marrying Beatrix. That is enough to set the village humming. By noon, even the sheep seem to sense the change. There are no invitations, no scrolls carried by messengers. The rule is simple: if you can walk, you can come. Those who live close by will arrive with baskets. Those farther away may follow the smoke that rises from cooking fires. Whether 10 or 100, it makes no difference. A wedding belongs to everyone. In this world, time does not move by the clock, but by the color of the sky. Noon might arrive before breakfast, and evening might not mean rest. Yet when the day of a wedding comes, something subtle shifts. The air feels slower, more deliberate. It carries a kind of hush, as if the earth itself pauses to watch. Inside one small cottage, the bride prepares. She has no white gown, no veil of lace. Such things belong to stories, not to fields and mud. Her dress is simply her best one, brown perhaps, or a shade of faded grey that once dreamed of being blue. It smells faintly of straw and smoke. She shakes the dust from its folds, smooths the creases with her palms, and ties her hair with a ribbon cut from an old curtain. If it is spring, she picks a few flowers from the path and weaves them through her braid. They wilt almost instantly, but she smiles anyway. Her face is not painted. The color it carries is the color of work, of air and sun, of the long rhythm of days spent living close to the soil. There is something quiet in her eyes, not excitement, not fear, just an understanding that this day is part of life's long, unbroken line. The groom, in another hut, does his best to match her. He shakes out his tunic, brushes away the dust, and if he is lucky enough to own shoes, he wipes them clean. If not, the soles of his feet will do. They are toughened by years of walking barefoot over frozen ground and sun-baked fields. He runs his hand through his hair, which is stubborn and coarse, then nods to himself in the small mirror of water inside a wooden bowl. That will do. Outside, the world wakes slowly. Chickens cluck, dogs bark at shadows, and the sound of laughter begins to ripple through the lanes. Children chase one another with sticks. Old women lean on canes, whispering stories of their own weddings long ago. The smell of smoke thickens as fires are lit for cooking. The wedding will take place wherever there is space enough to stand. Sometimes beneath a tree, sometimes by the fence, sometimes beside the chicken coop, freshly swept for the occasion. The ground is uneven, full of stones and patches of grass. People gather in slow, uneven circles. Some stand, some sit on logs or haystacks. A few lucky ones find an old bench. The air smells of soil and cabbage stew, and above it all, the low hum of voices folds everything together. When the bride appears, the talking softens. She walks carefully, her hands steady, her eyes lowered, not from modesty, but from concentration, making sure not to trip on the hem of her dress. The groom steps forward, awkward but smiling. They stand before a priest if one is available, if not, before a neighbor who knows the right words. There is no procession, no choir, no grand entrance. Only a few sentences spoken softly, perhaps forgotten halfway through. I take you as mine, and I take you as yours. That is enough. There are no rings, no altars, no kisses. They simply look at each other, eyes meeting like two steady flames in the wind. The crowd murmurs approvingly. Someone clears their throat, someone laughs. A child tugs at a mother's sleeve, asking when the food will come. Life continues, even inside the moment of promise. Around them, the village stands as witness, the people, the animals, the air itself. And when the last word is said, there is no applause, only the soft rustle of movement as the crowd begins to breathe again. The sound that follows is faint at first, the scrape of a ladle against a pot, the clink of a jug being opened, the sigh of someone relieved that the ceremony is done. Then laughter begins to return, scattered at first, then rolling like a wave through the group. The tension loosens. The day, which had been holding its breath, exhales. There is something deeply human about this moment. No luxury, no spectacle, only presence. The promise has been spoken aloud, and that is all it takes. Two people have chosen to share their days, the work, the hunger, the rain, the long winters. It is not romance as the poets imagine it, but something more grounded, more enduring. In the fields, the clouds drift low and heavy. A breeze lifts the smell of stew from a nearby pot. Children chase chickens, laughing. An old man hums under his breath. The bride glances up at the sky, half expecting it to rain. The groom squeezes her hand. And then the moment simply becomes part of everything else. The fields, the fences, the slow ticking of days. This is how a medieval wedding begins, not with grandeur, but with the soft weight of belonging. It is not about crowns or riches or the blessing of nobles. It is about soil, breath, and the quiet continuity of life. Somewhere in the distance, the church bell rings, not loudly, not clearly, just enough to remind everyone that time is moving. But here, in this small patch of earth, time feels slower, as if the world itself has stopped to rest its hands. A woman adjusts the wreath of flowers on the bride's head. A boy hands the groom a jug of ale. Someone begins to hum a tune that no one fully remembers. It drifts above the crowd, light as dust, carried away by the wind. As the last lines of the song fade, the sun begins to tilt westward. Shadows lengthen, the earth smells of warmth and grass. The feast will come soon, but for now, everything is still, caught between the vows and the laughter, between one life and the next. This is the pause before celebration, the breath before joy, the quiet heartbeat of a village waiting for night to arrive. The vows have been spoken, softly and without spectacle. Now the hum of daily life returns, though gentler than before. The crowd drifts toward the center of the village, where the smoke of cooking fires curls upward in slow, graceful lines. The scent of barley, onion, and cabbage clings to the cool air, pulling everyone closer. There is no grand table, no long rows of benches dressed with flowers. The ground itself becomes the dining hall, the sky its ceiling, and the sound of voices its decoration. Somewhere in the middle of it all, a pot larger than any man's dream bubbles over a low fire. Steam escapes in lazy breaths, carrying the promise of warmth and fullness. Inside the pot lies the feast, cabbage, leeks, barley, and turnips. humble things gathered from the same earth that fed them all year. A few pieces of dried meat may have found their way in, though no one dares ask whose chicken made the sacrifice. The broth thickens slowly, the wooden spoon turning in steady rhythm. The cook, sleeves rolled high, wipes her brow and smiles at nothing in particular. One by one, the villagers find their places. Some squat on the ground, some lean against fences or hay bales, others perch on half-broken stools. There are no seats reserved, no order of importance. If your spot is taken by a dog, you simply find another. If your bowl is cracked, you hold it carefully and let the cracks fill with soup. Bread passes from hand to hand, dense, dark, and comforting. It is not soft, but it holds its weight like everything else in this life. The first bite always surprises, a little sour, a little smoky, a little like the morning air. Someone laughs about how hard it is, how even a pig would hesitate. Everyone laughs back. The ale comes next, drawn from wooden barrels brought from one cottage to another. It is darker than water, stronger than memory, and safer than either. The first sip burns slightly but kindly. It is the warmth that turns strangers into friends and fatigue into song. The mugs are shared freely. If you don't have one, you borrow or drink from your hands. There is no shame in that. Children dart through the crowd, chasing dogs and snatching bread crusts, their laughter echoing against the walls. Someone drops a spoon and curses softly. Another trips on a loose plank and laughs before anyone else can. Life spills and keeps moving. Soon the music begins, not from instruments well-tuned, but from whatever can be made to sing. A fiddle appears, one string short. Someone finds a pipe. Another man beats rhythm on a pot lid with a stick. It's enough. The sound that rises is crooked but alive, raw as breath. People begin to dance. Not in steps or patterns, but in movement born of joy and exhaustion. Feet stomp in mud, hands find hands, laughter bursts in waves. The bride and groom are pushed gently into the middle of the circle. They blush, stumble, then move together in awkward harmony. It doesn't matter if they know the rhythm. The crowd makes it for them. The dance spreads like fire. Elders clap along from the edges, some too stiff to join, others secretly tapping their toes beneath the folds of wool. Children mimic what they see, spinning until they fall, rolling in grass, faces bright with dirt and glee. The fiddler grins, the pipe wheezes, and the entire world seems to move to one uneven but honest beat. When the tune ends, it doesn't really end. It fades into laughter, into clapping, into the sound of breathing that feels almost like music itself. Someone starts another song, slower this time. Voices join in, off-key, low and tender. It's a song older than anyone remembers, carried by generations like a shared blanket. Between songs, stories begin. They are not told for meaning, only for sound, for the comfort of voices speaking into the night. A man recalls a wedding years ago when a goat escaped with half the feast. A woman remembers how her husband fell into the stew pot once and still insists it improved the flavor. The stories blur with time and ale, but nobody minds. The point is not truth. The point is warmth. As the moon climbs higher, gifts appear. They are laid quietly near the couple, a sack of grain, a small wheel of cheese, 2 eggs in a basket, a jug of ale sealed with care. Someone brings a hen tied at the legs, someone else a hoe with a cracked handle. The gifts are not grand, but each carries meaning. Food for winter, tools for survival, proof of goodwill. A single jug, old and dented, passes from hand to hand. It has attended every wedding for a decade, maybe more. No one remembers who owned it first, and no one dares to keep it long. To hold it is to be part of the chain of memory, and that is enough. Not every gift is practical. A child places a handful of daisies beside the others. A woman adds a ribbon. Someone ties a feather to the jug handle. Beauty, however small, finds its way into everything. The night grows thicker. The air smells of wood smoke, sweat, and stew. The laughter softens, turning into murmurs. The dogs curl near the fire, snoring lightly. A few men begin to sing again, slower now, as if rocking the night to sleep. The bride and groom sit close, hands still linked, faces lit by the last flame. They do not speak much. Words are not needed here. Around them, life breathes, the shifting of straw, the sigh of someone lying down, the creak of an old bench. For a moment, the village becomes one single body, resting. Each heart beats to the same slow rhythm. Each breath rises into the same quiet night. The moon looks down, pale and watchful, as if it too understands the weight of this peace. Or this is not a grand celebration, it is something humbler, something truer. A rare evening where hunger is replaced by fullness, labor by laughter, solitude by shared warmth. Tomorrow they will return to their fields, their chores, their ordinary days, but tonight they rest. The fire crackles lower. Someone throws the last piece of wood on it, watching the sparks drift upward. One by one, the villagers begin to drift away, some to their huts, some simply lying down where they stand. The songs fade to hums, then to silence. Only the wind remains, slipping gently through the grass. It carries the faint smell of ale, the soft sound of a fiddle string still trembling, and the quiet murmur of a world that for a few brief hours remembered how to be still. And beneath it all, the earth hums, patient and eternal, keeping the memory of the feast like a secret too kind to let go. The feast has faded into laughter and gentle exhaustion. The air, still heavy with smoke and barley, carries a slower rhythm now. The moon stands high above the thatched roofs, pale and quiet, as if watching over what remains of the celebration. The fire burns low in the center of the square, surrounded by shadows that move like tired memories. Someone plucks a string, just one, and the sound lingers in the cool night. Then another joins, an old fiddle, missing a piece of its bridge, followed by the hollow beat of a wooden bucket struck with a stick. A whistle rises, thin and sweet, cutting through the haze. Soon the rhythm finds its way into feet and hands. The villagers begin to move again, drawn toward the circle of fire, as if pulled by the memory of joy itself. There are no rehearsed steps here, no careful formations. The dance begins in the simplest way. One person stomps, another claps, and a third follows. Bare feet slap against the wet earth, leaving prints that glisten in the firelight. The sound grows, uneven but full, a heartbeat for the village. The bride and groom are pulled back into the center. She laughs as someone nudges her forward, her cheeks flushed from heat and happiness. The groom tries to resist, but his friends won't allow it. They move together, awkwardly at first, then slowly in rhythm, letting the crowd's laughter guide their steps. Around them, people cheer softly, their voices mixing with the crackle of the fire and the faint cry of an owl far off in the dark. Children run between the dancers, their small feet quick and clumsy. One girl spins until she falls, laughing into the dirt. Another boy steals a hat from an old man and disappears behind a haystack. The old man pretends to chase him, waving his arm and muttering threats no one believes. It is a kind of music too, the language of play that keeps life warm. The songs change. The faster tunes melt into slower ones, sung by voices thick with ale and affection. They are not polished songs, not really songs at all, but fragments of melody carried from one generation to another. A few words about love, a few about rain, and always one or two about hunger and hope. The words don't matter, the sound is what holds them together. By the fire, an old woman hums quietly. Her eyes are half closed, her hands folded on her lap. She remembers her own wedding, long ago, before her hair turned silver, before her husband's voice faded from the world. She hums the same tune he once sang, a slow melody that moves like a prayer without words. The others join in, one by one, until the entire square becomes a single, low murmur of human warmth. The fire crackles softly. Sparks drift upward, vanishing into the dark like tiny stars that forgot where they belonged. A few villagers sway in rhythm, their shadows stretching long across the ground. The smell of earth, of wood smoke and wet grass, fills the lungs like a lullaby. Then one by one, the dancers begin to fade away. The children fall asleep first, curled up beside dogs or on piles of straw. The elders follow, wrapped in wool cloaks, their heads nodding with the slow gravity of age. The younger ones linger, their laughter soft now, private, echoing faintly through the still air. Someone whispers something kind, and another answers with a quiet smile. The bride and groom remain by the fire. They don't speak much. They sit close, the way people do when they've said all they need to say. The glow from the embers paints their faces in shades of red and gold. For a while, they just watch the light shift and the ashes settle. Every now and then, she leans her head on his shoulder. He doesn't move. He doesn't need to. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster calls too early. The sound is faint but clear, like the first reminder that time still moves. The fire sighs, collapsing inward, as if bowing to the dawn. The village is quiet again. Only the faint rustle of straw and the steady breath of sleeping bodies remain. When morning comes, it doesn't rush. It slides gently over the fields, painting everything in soft grey. The ground is damp, dotted with footprints and the remains of last night's laughter. Empty bowls lie upside down. Breadcrumbs scatter across the earth. A chicken wanders through the mess, curious and unbothered. The first to wake are the ones who never truly slept. They stretch, cough, and begin to gather what's left. A woman collects spoons from the mud. A man carries the barrel back to its corner. Someone sweeps the ashes into a pile. It is slow work, but it feels right. The silence of the morning isn't heavy. It's the kind that lets the world breathe again. The bride emerges from the small cottage, hair unbraided, eyes still soft with sleep. The groom follows, his tunic wrinkled, his smile quiet. They walk together through the aftermath, stepping carefully around puddles and spilled ale. No one greets them loudly. They nod, they smile, and that is enough. There is no grand departure, no carriage, no farewell song. Their life together begins exactly where the celebration ends, among mud, smoke, and the faint scent of stew. The day will unfold as all days do. Chores to be done, fields to tend, water to draw. But something subtle has changed. A thread has been tied, invisible but strong, weaving one life into another. By noon, the village will look as it always has. The benches will be back by the fences, the animals fed, the air filled with the same steady rhythm of labor. Yet for those who were there, something lingers. The memory of warmth in the cold, of laughter echoing under stars, of hands that touched not in luxury, but in understanding. That is the true gift of a peasant wedding. Not the stew, not the music, not even the vows. It is the pause, a rare, delicate silence between seasons of work. A reminder that joy does not need to be chased. It can grow quietly in the cracks of ordinary life, in muddy fields and tired faces, in the way people come together simply because they can. As the day moves on, the wind rises again, sweeping through the thatched roofs and open doors. It carries the scent of ashes, the faint trace of ale, the whisper of laughter now folded into memory. Somewhere, a new song begins, someone humming while hanging washed clothes, someone whistling while sharpening a blade. Life continues as it always does, with both hands full. And in that quiet continuation lies the truest kind of celebration, not one that dazzles and fades, but one that endures, soft, steady, and human. The night is gone. The feast is done. But the echo remains, carried gently in the breath of the morning air. Ancient Greek banquets, conversation, moderation, and games. The evening opens slowly, the way oil lamps bloom to life one wick at a time. The air inside the small andron, reserved for men and their guests, feels thick with heat and incense. The clay floor has been swept clean. Cushions line the couches along the walls, each broad enough for a man to recline upon, his elbow resting easily, his voice level with the next. In the center, the space is left open, an empty circle waiting to gather breath, sound, and motion. Servants move quietly, their steps soft as the rustle of linen. The light is uneven, flickering in places where the oil burns low. Bronze cups catch and scatter it, sending thin ripples across the walls. Outside, the night is still. Only a faint breeze passes through the narrow door, carrying the smell of roasted meat and crushed olives. The guests arrive in pairs, in small groups, each greeted by the host with a nod or a gentle clasp of hands. There are no grand entrances here, no trumpets or ceremony, only the low hum of recognition. Sandals are left by the threshold, cloaks folded neatly near the door. The air soon fills with a mix of voices, laughter that doesn't rise too high, and the quiet rhythm of a household settling into its evening ritual. Before the symposium begins, there is food, simple, measured, enough to prepare the body without dulling the mind. Platters of bread, figs and cheese pass from couch to couch. Olives glisten like small dark stones. Fish, seasoned with herbs, is shared between neighbors. Nothing is hurried, the talk is low, the mood restrained. Everyone knows that the real gathering has not yet begun. Wine waits untouched in its great clay jar, the crater, set near the center of the room. It gleams faintly in the lamplight, a patient heart around which everything else will soon turn. Beside it lies the wooden ladle, smooth from years of use, and the smaller mixing bowls ready to be filled. The wine itself is strong, dense, and dark, meant never to be drunk alone. It will meet water before meeting lips. When the meal ends, the servants move again. The bowls are cleared, the floor brushed clean, and a moment of silence passes through the room. It is a quiet, both deliberate and sacred, as if the walls themselves hold their breath. Then the host rises slowly from his couch. His robe slips at the shoulder, and his eyes catch the lamplight. With a careful motion, he fills the crater, wine first, then water, stirring the mixture in a slow circle. There is a calm precision to this act. Too much wine and thought collapses into noise, too much water, and the night loses its pulse. The right balance is a kind of wisdom, a way of keeping the spirit awake while letting the body drift just enough toward warmth. When the mix is done, the host lifts the ladle and pours the first cup for the gods, a small libation offered to Dionysus, not as invitation, but as acknowledgement. The liquid glistens as it hits the ground. Then the first toast comes. It is simple, a few words for health, for friendship, for peace in the house. The guests raise their cups together, not clinking, but moving in quiet unison. The sound of the first sip is like the beginning of music, soft, deliberate, resonant. Now the night has started. The slaves refill the cups one by one, moving clockwise around the room. The wine glows a muted red, deepened by lamplight. The smell of resin drifts up, mingling with the faint sweetness of honey cakes. The talk grows livelier. Someone mentions the market, another the weather over Piraeus, another a story from the last festival, but still everything remains contained. The voices overlap but never collide. In the corner, an old man leans back on his elbow and murmurs about the old days when he too poured the first libation in a room just like this. The younger men listen politely, eyes half-lidded, their minds already half in the music they know will follow. Near the doorway, a slave girl plays the aulos, a twin-reeded flute. The notes slip softly through the room, bending and unsteady like a dream learning how to walk. Her fingers move quickly, her eyes lowered. The melody doesn't demand attention, it drifts around the edges of the conversation, giving it shape. The second cup is served. The laughter begins to rise, not loud, but warmer now. A few words of poetry are recited. Someone quotes Hesiod, another answers with a line of his own making, half serious, half teasing. The mood is light but careful, the way a candle flame dances before the draught finds it. The servants refill the lamps, trimming the wicks. Shadows retreat to the corners. The bronze mirror on the far wall catches a reflection of the flame, doubling it, making the room seem larger than it is. The scent of myrrh begins to spread, slow and almost invisible. When the third cup is poured, the symposium truly breathes. The host invites a guest, perhaps a philosopher, perhaps a poet, to offer the evening's theme. It might be love or courage or friendship or simply the art of living well. The choice matters less than the tone. A good theme opens the mind, lets words wander gently without force. The conversation begins its long, measured flow. Voices take turns the way waves take turns breaking on the shore. No one shouts, no one interrupts. There is rhythm here, the kind that comes from listening as much as from speaking. A question becomes a reflection becomes a story becomes silence again. Every now and then a cup spills slightly, a drop of wine darkening the floor. No one notices. The sound of the aulos drifts between sentences, filling the space words leave behind. Someone leans back and smiles, not at anything said, but at the quiet perfection of the moment, the balance of warmth, sound and thought. This is not a place of indulgence, it is a place of alignment. The wine, the light, the air, all conspire to make the mind calm and the tongue gentle. To drink too little would be to remain a guest, to drink too much, to lose oneself. But to drink just enough to feel the world slow and soften, that is the art of the night. Outside, the streets are dark. A dog barks somewhere near the harbour. Inside, the air hums low and even. The symposium has settled into its first rhythm, a harmony of speech and silence that feels almost timeless. No one rushes. There is nowhere to go, nothing to prove. The night stretches quietly before them, a wide and patient space. And within that space, a simple understanding begins to take form. That pleasure, when held gently, can become something sacred. The host raises his cup once more, eyes steady, voice low. Around him, the others follow. Together they drink, not to forget, but to remember that in the heart of stillness, thought and warmth can live side by side. The lamps flicker again, shadows bending toward the floor. The sound of the flute fades to a sigh. Somewhere beyond the walls, the sea turns under the moon. And inside, the quiet deepens, wrapping around every voice, every heartbeat, until even the air feels content to rest. Rest your mind. The journey begins in the silence. The wine makes its quiet rounds again. The slaves move clockwise, careful not to spill a drop as they tilt the ladles. The cups, wide and shallow, catch the lamplight like small pools of red. With each pour, the air grows warmer, softer, more alive. The guests begin to loosen, shoulders uncoil, words flow more easily, and laughter gathers in corners like dust stirred by a breeze. Someone hums. At first, it's barely sound, only the vibration of breath meeting the rim of a cup. Then a few notes take shape, tentative and low, weaving around the faint crackle of oil lamps. The melody lingers there like smoke refusing to fade. A man with a lyre, its strings old but still bright, joins in, plucking slow, patient chords. The room listens, no one claps. They simply nod to the rhythm, eyes half closed, hands resting lightly on the edges of their wine cups. This is how music begins here, not with applause or command, but with permission. The permission to be unhurried, to let a tune wander until it finds its home. The flute follows, the double reeds carrying a thin silver tone that winds around the lyre like mist. The host smiles faintly. The sound is not perfect, but it doesn't need to be. In this place, imperfection is intimacy. When the song ends, someone laughs, a gentle, almost embarrassed laugh, and the talk resumes. Not about the melody, but about life itself. About small things that fill it. The market that morning, the wind from the sea, the price of olives, and then without transition someone speaks of justice or courage or the weight of time. The conversation turns like the tide, slow, circular, inevitable. Words are the true center of the symposium. Wine softens them, but does not erase their edge. Each sentence glides into another, each thought meets resistance, reshaped by listening. A guest recites a line of poetry, his voice steady, his eyes fixed somewhere far beyond the lamp's glow. Another answers with a verse of his own, and the two exchange lines like moves in a gentle game. The others lean back, watching the duel unfold. Sometimes the tone deepens. A philosopher begins to speak, calm, deliberate, as if his words were stones he must set in careful order. He speaks of balance, of how pleasure without thought becomes hunger, and how thought without pleasure turns to stone. The room quiets. Even the lamps seem to dim slightly as if leaning in. Then when the moment grows too heavy, another voice, a younger one, cuts through with a joke, and laughter ripples again. The solemnity breaks, but not rudely. It releases the room like rain releases the earth. At the far end, two guests begin a small contest of riddles. The rules are simple. One poses the question, the other must answer, before his cup is empty. "What has no mouth yet speaks in every storm?" says one. "The sea," replies the other. "What can cross a city without leaving a trace?" Silence for a moment. "Wind." Applause, not the loud kind, just palms tapping knees. Someone mutters, "Too easy," and the laughter returns. Between each game, the servants refill the cups again. A few drops fall to the floor. Someone flicks his finger to send the leftover wine toward a small dish placed on the ground, a target for amusement. The splash echoes faintly, followed by cheerful murmurs. The Greeks call it kotobos, the art of throwing the last of one's drink toward a goal, a tiny act of control in a night meant to release it. The game continues one after another until the floor bears a constellation of small red stains. Every so often the door curtain lifts and a new breeze slips in. The lamps tremble, shadows shift. For a moment the room seems to breathe in time with the ocean outside. The music begins again, lighter now, brighter. The flute's notes rise and fall in loops like the movement of fish beneath waves. Two men start clapping softly in rhythm. Another stamps his heel once, twice. The sound fills the space, humble and alive. The slaves keep the rhythm alive, refilling cups with the same practiced grace. They know the pattern by heart, one for the gods, one for conversation, one for laughter. Never more than 3 without pause. Wine here is not indulgence, it is instrument. The Greeks believed that truth sits somewhere between sobriety and drunkenness, that to reach it, one must walk the narrow bridge between the two. And so they sip, never gulp, keeping the night in balance. Conversation turns toward love. It always does. A young guest, eager and flushed, begins to speak of beauty as if it were a kind of light, something that enters the body through the eyes and teaches the soul how to move. The older men listen, smiling at his certainty. One of them replies gently, "Then tell me, when beauty fades, does the soul forget?" The young man hesitates. He drinks, thinking. "No," he says at last. "It remembers differently." The older man nods, satisfied. "Then it is not beauty you love," he says, "but the remembering of it." The group hums in agreement, not to decide who has won, but to mark the weight of what was said. The flute resumes softly, filling the silence left behind. A slave boy enters with a small bronze basin, washing the guests' hands one by one. The water runs cool over skin that smells faintly of resin and smoke. He pours slowly, and each man lets the water trickle down, catching the last heat of the night before it fades. The boy's motion is rhythmic, almost ceremonial. No one speaks while he moves. When he leaves, the talk resumes, but quieter now, as if the room itself has grown tired. The wine continues its slow journey from hand to hand, and the guests' voices blend with the low hum of the flute. Someone tells a story of a voyage across the Aegean, where a storm broke for 3 days and the captain prayed to every god he could name. The story doesn't end dramatically, it ends the way all things here do, gently. "And when the sea calmed," he says, "we all slept on deck, and the stars looked close enough to touch." No one replies. They simply breathe together in the silence that follows. Outside, the night has deepened. The city beyond the walls is quiet. Only the occasional bark of a dog or the faint roll of a wagon reaches them. Inside, the symposium glows like an ember, its heat low, steady, and human. Then softly, the host raises his cup again. "To the night," he says. The others echo him, voices blending in uneven unison. "To the night." They drink, slowly. And for a moment, nothing moves but the flame. The lamps have burned low. Their light no longer stretches across the walls, but pools softly at the center, touching the faces closest to it. The andron, the men's hall, has become a small enclosed world, a circle of murmured voices and half-finished thoughts. No one leads and no one commands. Here, hierarchy fades like smoke. Each man reclines in the same posture, the same distance from the center, the same reach from the wine. The couches form a near-perfect ring, leaving a small open space for the servants to move through. That space, wide enough for a dancer or a flute player, also serves as a kind of quiet altar, a place where thought and sound can drift freely without striking a wall. The arrangement is deliberate. No one sits higher than another. No one's shadow covers the rest. This is what the Greeks called isonomia, a simple equality of presence. The room itself teaches the lesson that wisdom listens better when it sits level with its peers. The fourth cup is poured with care. No words accompany it. The host looks around, reading the signs of the night. Too much wine, and reason dissolves. Too little, and the night remains unformed. Tonight, he has found the balance. The guests' eyes are bright, but not distant. Their laughter carries warmth, not noise. Someone leans forward and says, "The soul is like this wine, clear only when stirred." The others pause, a few nod. The flute answers in a soft echo, a single note stretched long enough to hold the silence between them. Outside, the wind begins to move through the olive trees, brushing the courtyard walls. The sound seeps in through the narrow doorway. It mingles with the low hum of the room until no one can tell where the world ends and the gathering begins. A servant refills the lamps with fresh oil, and the scent of it, earthy, faintly sweet, marks the passage of hours. The guests grow quiet again, not because the night has ended, but because something deeper than conversation has begun. This is the true heart of the symposium, not debate, not laughter, but that long, tender moment when thought dissolves into simple being. One man begins to hum an old hymn, not to a god, but to memory. It's a tune his father once sang during harvest season. The others listen, eyes heavy, breathing slow. The melody isn't grand. It moves like a river in darkness, steady, unbroken. When it ends, no one claps. The silence after it feels sacred. At the far end, a philosopher speaks again, but softly now. His words are fragments, almost dreams. Perhaps wisdom is not knowing more, he says, but needing less. To eat, to drink, to speak, and still be gentle. His hand moves slowly as he gestures toward the lamp. Even the flame knows when to bend. A few smile at the thought. No one argues. The symposium has shifted from dialogue to reflection, from thought to feeling. Every sound seems to fall slower now, the scrape of a cup, the faint whistle of breath, the rustle of cloth as someone adjusts their seat. A servant enters carrying a small bronze tray of figs, honey, and cheese. The sweetness of it fills the room. Hands reach out lazily, not from hunger, but as a kind gesture to share what remains. The figs are soft, the honey thick, the flavor warm on the tongue. For a moment, eating feels like gratitude itself. Someone suggests one last toast. The host nods. "To the gods for balance," he says first. Another voice adds, "To friendship for patience." A third says, "To the night for keeping our secrets." Then, unexpectedly, a quiet voice from the corner says, "To silence for letting us hear what words cannot." The others repeat it, one by one, until the whole room whispers the phrase. The lamps flicker, as if agreeing. Outside, the moon climbs higher. The stones of the courtyard glow faintly, cool and pale. Inside, the wine has nearly run out. The servants begin gathering the empty cups. One of them, a boy no older than 14, hesitates before picking up the last cup. He listens for a moment to the room, the soft breaths, the slow murmur of afterthoughts, and then moves silently again, careful not to disturb what still lingers there. The host stretches, his joints cracking softly. "It is late," he says. No one answers. They all know, yet no one stands. Leaving too quickly would break the spell. Instead, the guests linger in a gentle half-wakefulness, like men floating between two worlds. The flute girl begins one final melody, this one almost motionless, a thread of air that trembles and fades. It sounds like farewell, but also like rest. Each note falls lighter than the last, until even the silence that follows feels like part of the music. When the last lamp finally dims, the room glows only with the faint blue of night. The men rise slowly, stretching, finding their sandals by touch. Their steps are soft, deliberate. The courtyard beyond is cool, the sky deep with stars. No one speaks as they leave. There is no need. The conversation continues quietly inside them, each carrying a small echo of the night, the tone of a voice, the taste of wine, the sense of being understood. The host remains behind. He kneels briefly to wipe a small spill of wine from the floor. The gesture is not of cleanup, but of closure, as if returning the night to the earth that bore it. He sets the last lamp beside the crater, watching its thin smoke curl upward and vanish. For a moment, he stands in the empty room, surrounded by stillness so complete it feels like company. He looks around once more, the couches, the cups, the faint outlines of where his friends reclined. Nothing has been lost. Everything has simply gone quiet. He smiles faintly. The symposium has ended, but its real work, connection, remains. Outside, dawn stirs at the edge of the sky. The first bird begins to sing, distant, uncertain. The world begins again, unaware that inside this small stone room, men have spoken of love, of virtue, of the delicate art of being alive. When he finally steps out, the cool air meets his skin like a blessing. The scent of olive trees and sea salt lingers. Behind him, the door closes softly, as though sealing the night inside forever. The symposium will happen again, as it always does, not exactly the same, never entirely different. Each time, a few words will survive the wine, the laughter, the fading light. A few thoughts will take root and grow quietly somewhere in the world. And when the next night comes and the lamps are lit again and the first cup is poured, the circle will form once more. The same rhythm, the same stillness. Men will gather, speak, and fall silent together. They will share the same truth that has always lived in this simple ritual. That joy is not found in excess, but in balance. That wisdom does not shout, but listens. That the most enduring kind of beauty is the one that leaves quietly when morning comes. And when it does, when the sun finally reaches the edges of the walls, the host will smile, hearing in the wind the faintest echo of that night's final words. To silence, for letting us hear what words cannot. Beauty and hygiene in ancient Egypt, coal, wigs, and fragrance. The morning in ancient Egypt arrived quietly, not with haste, but with rhythm. Along the banks of the Nile, the air was cool before the sun began to burn the water into gold. The river moved with a patient sound, the kind that doesn't disturb, but reminds you that life never truly stops. Somewhere, a man bends over a basin carved from clay, cupping water into his hands. It spills between his fingers, leaving trails of light across his skin. This is not vanity, this is renewal. To the people of ancient Egypt, cleanliness was more than habit. It was harmony. The act of washing one's body each morning was both practical and sacred, a gesture that balanced the body and the spirit. The desert gave them dust and heat. The river offered its opposite, coolness, clarity, and life. So every day began with a return to water, to the simple rhythm of washing away the night. The sound of linen brushing against skin mingled with the soft murmur of the Nile. Women carried jars of fresh water from the river, their arms steady, their footsteps slow across the sand. Children splashed near the edges, laughing softly before the day grew too hot. Fishermen prepared their nets, priests prepared their prayers. But for everyone, the first duty was to be clean. In the stone courtyards of Thebes or the mud-brick homes of smaller villages, the ritual unfolded the same way. A shallow basin, a small cloth, a bar of natron, a mineral salt drawn from dry lake beds, both cleanser and preservative. When mixed with a little oil, it became a gentle scrub that left the skin smooth and dry. The people believed that to cleanse the body was to free it from impurity, to align oneself with Maat, the order of the world. Dirt was more than inconvenience, it was chaos, a sign that something in life had drifted out of balance. The morning light entered through narrow windows, laying strips of brightness across the walls. A woman dipped her hands in a bowl of water, scented with lotus, and began to wash her face. Her movements were slow, deliberate, almost meditative. She smoothed the water from her cheeks down to her neck, then applied oil to her arms. Olive if she was modest, moringa if she could afford more. The oil protected her skin from the desert sun, sealed in moisture, and left a faint sheen that caught the light. A small mirror made of polished copper rested beside her, glowing softly in the light. She did not gaze into it for beauty, but for alignment, to see whether her reflection looked calm, balanced, ready for the day. Nearby, her husband combed his hair with a wooden comb, its teeth carved by hand. He would then rub his scalp with the same oil, smoothing it into a neat, dark sheen. The scent of resin and myrrh filled the room, faint but grounding, the smell of care and patience. The eyes came last. To the Egyptians, they were the seat of power and protection. Both men and women lined their eyelids with kohl, a fine black powder made from ground galena mixed with oil or fat. It was drawn slowly from the inner corner outward, forming that long, graceful line we now call the Egyptian eye. The gesture was delicate, almost reverent. It wasn't decoration alone. The black pigment shielded the eyes from sunlight, reduced glare, and kept away insects. Modern science would later confirm what the ancients seemed to know instinctively, that the lead compounds in kohl had antibacterial properties, helping prevent infection. But for them, it was more than science. It was protection from disease, from evil spirits, from the unseen. The act of lining one's eyes was part of a ritual as old as their gods. They believed that each stroke invoked the eye of Horus, the symbol of healing and wholeness. To prepare one's face in the morning was to wear a small piece of the divine. The morning moved without urgency. No one hurried. The world outside was already waking. The creak of wooden doors, the low bray of donkeys, the murmur of vendors setting up along the streets. Yet within each home, the pace remained measured. To be clean was not simply to look ready, it was to feel aligned, inwardly composed before stepping into the heat of the day. After washing, many would wrap themselves in fresh linen, plain, white, and light enough to let the air pass through. Linen was more than fabric, it was purity woven into form. The smoother and whiter it was, the closer it came to the ideal of perfection. Even the poorest tried to keep one good garment washed in the Nile's water and dried under the open sun. The whiteness of it mirrored the order of Maat, reminding them that clarity both within and without was part of being alive. When the body was tended, a small breakfast followed, perhaps bread made from barley or emmer wheat, dipped in honey, or accompanied by a piece of dried date. Eating, too, had its rhythm. Meals were taken quietly, often outdoors under the shade of a wall. People did not rush. The day would be long and the sun unrelenting. Afterward, a man might take a reed mat outside to sit in the mild morning light, watching the river shimmer like metal. Across the water, a priest could be seen performing his own cleansing at the temple steps. washing his hands, his mouth, his entire body before offering incense to the gods. Purity was not a private matter, it was public, a shared understanding that the divine could only be approached by those who were clean, both in body and in heart. Even children learned this early. Before lessons or work, they washed their faces and hands, often under the watchful eye of a parent who repeated the same phrase each day, "Clean hands bring clear thoughts." It was not superstition, but philosophy. The Egyptians believed that clarity of the body led to clarity of mind. To wash was to reset, to begin again from balance. By the time the sun stood high enough to chase away the last traces of night, the whole village shimmered with a quiet, orderly life. Women brushed their hair in the shade, applying fragrant oil to the ends to keep them smooth. Men adjusted their linen belts, checking the weave for wear. Even the smallest child smelled faintly of oil and river water. It was a community bound not by speed or wealth, but by the shared rhythm of cleanliness. A daily ritual that made everyone, no matter their rank, part of the same world. From the palaces of Memphis to the farms near the Delta, this morning order never truly changed. It was not about showing beauty to others, it was about restoring harmony with oneself. The water washed away more than dust, it washed away restlessness, fear, and the residue of dreams. As the heat began to rise, the morning rituals faded into memory. The river, calm and immense, carried the reflection of thousands who had come to it with the same humble gesture, the desire to be renewed, if only for a day. And when the first boat slid down the current, its sail bright against the sky, it carried with it the scent of oil, the gleam of bronze mirrors, and the stillness of people who had learned the oldest lesson of all, that to be clean was to belong again, to oneself, to the earth, and to the quiet rhythm of the living world. As the sun rose higher over the Nile, the light thickened, soft at first, then steady and golden. The houses of mud brick glowed like baked clay, and the air warmed enough for the scent of oil and crushed herbs to drift through open courtyards. The morning's washing was done. Now came the quieter ritual, the transformation that turned cleanliness into grace. In ancient Egypt, beauty was never an afterthought. It was part of balance, a way of showing that one lived in rhythm with the world. The body, once washed and oiled, became a canvas for the day's second act. The arrangement of hair, the touch of fragrance, the smooth white folds of linen. Every gesture was deliberate, yet unhurried, as if the people knew there was no beauty without patience. Men and women alike tended to their heads with care. The sun could be merciless, the dust constant, and hair, though cherished, was also a burden under such heat. So most Egyptians shaved their heads or kept their hair short, a sign not of vanity but of discipline and hygiene. A clean scalp meant freedom from lice, coolness under the desert sun, and a sense of order that reflected their values. In temples, priests and priestesses shaved completely, seeing hair as a symbol of chaos, something to be removed before approaching the divine. But even for the common people, baldness was not emptiness, it was a blank space ready to be adorned. And so came the art of the wig, a marvel of craft and imagination. In the shaded corners of markets, wig makers sat surrounded by bundles of fiber, strands of human hair traded or gifted, locks of sheep's wool, cords of flax. They twisted, braided, and tied them together using beeswax and linen threads, shaping them into curls, plaits, and layers. Each wig was an echo of its owner's place in life. The wealthy commissioned intricate pieces that framed the face in soft waves or fell over the shoulders in tiered patterns. The poor had simpler versions, neat and sturdy, often lined with cloth for comfort. To wear a wig was to step into one's public self, clean, composed, and dignified. Even children, when attending ceremonies, were fitted with smaller ones. It was said that a well-made wig could outlast its wearer, passed down from mother to daughter, father to son, restored with new fibers and fresh wax. Before stepping outside, one last detail completed the ritual: the perfume cone. Artists have long depicted them. Small, rounded cones perched atop the heads of banquet guests or temple singers. For centuries, scholars debated whether these were symbolic or real. Yet traces of them have been found in tombs, solid cones of fat blended with oil and scented resins. Myrrh, lotus, frankincense, cinnamon, the fragrances of both daily life and eternity. Placed on the wig before a feast or prayer, the cone slowly melted under the heat of the day, releasing its perfume like a quiet exhale. The scent was not overwhelming. It lingered close to the skin, following the wearer like a private aura. To smell of sweetness was not indulgence, it was cleanliness extended, a mark of purity and refinement. In a land where the gods themselves were believed to smell divine, fragrance was both offering and imitation. Linen was the final touch, the simplest yet most sacred element. The Egyptians did not wear wool against their skin. It was too heavy, too coarse, too close to the animals it came from. Linen, spun from flax grown along the riverbanks, was cool, light, and almost luminous. Its whiteness was prized, not as decoration, but as virtue. It symbolized clarity, honesty, and alignment with Ma'at, the eternal balance of all things. The process of making linen was itself an act of devotion. Women beat and soaked the flax stalks until the fibers loosened, then combed, spun, and wove them into fine threads. The cloth that emerged was washed, pounded, and stretched under sunlight until it shone pale as sand under moonlight. The result was a fabric that whispered rather than rustled, breathing easily against the skin. Each person owned several garments, though most wore only one at a time: a long tunic for men, a sheath-like dress for women. The wealthy added pleats or transparent overlays. The poor made do with plain weaves, stitched neatly but without ornament. There were no buttons, no rigid shapes. The body moved freely beneath the folds, unconfined by weight or formality. When someone stepped into the street dressed in fresh linen and lightly perfumed, the effect was not flamboyant, but serene. The whiteness caught the sun softly, the scent of lotus mingled with the air, and the polished sheen of oil reflected the light like water. There was no difference between the man walking to his workshop and the woman tending her home in how they carried themselves. Both were aligned, clean, balanced. The perfumes they used were simple but varied. Some came from flowers, others from woods or resins. The blue lotus, in particular, held deep meaning. Its fragrance was thought to bring joy and clarity, its image symbolizing rebirth. To anoint oneself with lotus oil was to feel the river's calm carried on the skin. At larger gatherings, weddings, feasts, ceremonies, the preparation became communal. Women helped each other braid hair or adjust wigs. Men shared oil flasks and combs. Children ran about laughing, their heads mostly shaved, except for one braided lock called the side lock of youth, a sign of innocence and growth. The air filled with laughter and scent, and the soft hum of anticipation. Yet even amid celebration, moderation ruled. Beauty, in the Egyptian mind, was never excess. It was proportion, harmony, and quiet care. To appear too polished, too scented, was to disturb the natural balance. Elegance was the absence of effort. the kind that came from cleanliness, not ornament. As the day lengthened and the sun climbed toward its noonday height, the perfume cones melted more quickly. The oils softened into the wigs, darkening them with a gentle gloss. The scent thickened around people as they worked, prayed, or walked through shaded arcades. It was the fragrance of humanity at ease with itself, neither desperate to impress nor careless of form. By afternoon, the heat grew heavy, and the air shimmered above the streets. In the markets, vendors fanned themselves with palm leaves, and even the animals slowed. But the people moved calmly, their linen clothing light against the skin, their heads shaded, their scent still sweet. They did not fight the heat, they flowed with it. The body, cared for and adorned, became part of the landscape, another element of the earth made graceful by order. And when the sun finally began to descend, the oils and perfumes clung faintly to the skin like the last memory of mourning. The wigs were removed, cleaned, and placed carefully on stands. The linen garments were shaken out, washed again in Nile water, and left to dry in the fading light. Each evening, as shadows stretched long across the courtyards, people returned to simplicity. They unwrapped themselves from the day's adornments, not with vanity, but with gratitude. The body that had faced the sun was cooled again by water. The scent of oil gave way to the plain smell of clean skin. Beauty, in their world, began and ended with care, not the kind that demanded attention, but the kind that restored balance. A smooth head, a clean face, a scent of flowers, a piece of white linen. Together they formed a quiet testament to the Egyptian way of life, to live with grace, to smell of the earth and the river, and to let even the smallest gesture echo eternity. By the time the evening sun began to soften over the Nile, light touched every surface with a copper glow, the kind that made polished metal gleam and shadow grow long and kind. Inside quiet homes and open courtyards, the tools of daily care rested where morning had left them. A mirror of bronze, a small pot of coal, a comb carved from bone or ivory, a jar of fragrant oil. These were not luxuries, they were companions, silent instruments of order that turned ordinary life into quiet ritual. In ancient Egypt, the act of tending to the body was not separate from tending to the soul. The tools of cleanliness were sacred because they helped maintain Ma'at, the harmony between self, nature, and the divine. A mirror was more than reflection, it was truth, showing not only how one appeared, but how one aligned with the rhythm of the world. A typical household might have a few simple items: a copper mirror polished to brightness, a flat stone palette for grinding minerals, a small rod for applying eyeliner, a comb with wide teeth, a jar sealed with beeswax to preserve scented oil. In richer homes, these same objects became works of art: handles shaped like lotus stems, carvings of protective deities, inlays of turquoise and faience. Yet whether adorned or plain, their purpose was shared: to preserve dignity through care. When the day's heat faded, a woman might sit on a woven mat by the doorway, brushing her hair, or the wig that replaced it, with slow, rhythmic strokes. Each pull of the comb untangled more than hair. It smoothed the residue of the day, the dust, the thoughts that clung too tightly. Near her, a man dipped a thin stick into a pot of dark pigment, then traced a careful line beneath his lower lid. The same gesture made thousands of times before him by fathers and grandfathers, each stroke connecting the living to the long chain of those who came before. Cleanliness was continuity. It said, "We remember who we are." Children learned early to handle these tools with care. Mirrors especially were treated almost like living objects. They caught the light, held it, and gave it back. Some believed that a polished mirror could reflect not only the face, but the truth of one's heart. To keep it clean was to keep one's conscience clear. Even in tombs, mirrors were placed beside the dead so that the spirit might still recognize itself when the body was gone. The palette for grinding pigment was another essential item. Made of stone, often greenish schist, it was smooth from years of use. Upon it, a small lump of galena or malachite was ground with water or oil into a fine paste. The colors, black, green, and sometimes blue, carried both beauty and purpose. Green malachite symbolized rebirth and healing. Black galena signified protection and strength. When applied to the eyes, these shades were not just cosmetic. They were shields, invisible armor against dust, sun, and the unseen. For the Egyptians, the line between practical and spiritual never truly existed. A clean body was not just healthy, it was righteous. The scent of oil was not mere perfume, it was proof that one lived with respect for self and surroundings. The order of appearance mirrored the order of the cosmos. To neglect one's body was to risk imbalance, a small form of chaos in the great rhythm of things. Even the simplest act, like oiling the skin, was done with mindfulness. After bathing, the skin, exposed to the dry wind and sun, was rubbed with oil. Castor for the poor, moringa, or almond for the rich. The oil sealed moisture, softened the texture, and left behind a light sheen. But more than that, it restored the boundary between human and world. A thin, fragrant film that kept the desert at a respectful distance. In wealthier homes, servants tended to their masters with quiet precision. They poured water, held mirrors, and ground pigments, but they too kept their own smaller sets of tools. Wooden combs, simple razors, small flasks of oil. In Egypt, cleanliness belonged to everyone. Even laborers who worked under the sun would wash in the river at dusk, comb their hair, and rub oil on cracked skin. It was not about display, it was about returning to a state of wholeness before sleep. Temples reflected this philosophy in grand form. Priests shaved their entire bodies every few days, bathed several times daily, and anointed themselves with sacred oils before entering the sanctuary. They used fine razors, bronze mirrors, and jars carved from alabaster. To stand before the gods required absolute purity, not as punishment, but as preparation. The body had to be made still and clean enough for the spirit to speak. In their homes, ordinary people mirrored this in smaller ways. Before meals, before rest, before prayer. They washed. A mother would rinse a child's hands and face, smoothing oil onto his cheeks with gentle circles. A husband would clean his comb, lay his mirror flat, and whisper a small thanks to the river that gave him water. The tools themselves aged gracefully. A mirror dulled but still shone. A comb lost a tooth but kept its rhythm. These objects absorbed the life of those who touched them. When someone died, their favorite tools were placed in the tomb beside them. A mirror for recognition, a comb for order, a pot of coal for protection. Death did not end the ritual, it only carried it into another form. Archaeologists have found these things still intact. A woman's cosmetic box, its pigments untouched but vivid. A man's bronze razor, worn but sharp. A small jar of perfumed oil, sealed so tightly that its scent still lingers after millennia. In their stillness, these objects tell the same story, that even in the vast silence of death, the Egyptians believed in cleanliness as continuity, a bridge between the seen and unseen. To them, beauty was never pride, it was precision. A well-kept body showed discipline, a balanced scent showed thoughtfulness. Even laughter, even rest, carried a kind of grace when paired with cleanliness. The people of the Nile did not separate appearance from spirit or hygiene from peace. They saw the body as a reflection of the river itself, to be tended, kept clear, and allowed to flow. When night returned, homes filled again with the quiet sound of preparation. Water poured softly into basins. Hands dipped and rose, shining faintly in the lamplight. The same tools that began the morning now closed the day. Faces were cleaned of dust and paint, hair brushed free of sand, mirrors turned downward to rest. The air filled with the faint sweetness of oil and the cooling scent of wet stone. In that silence, cleanliness became something larger, not duty, not display, but peace. To cleanse the body before night was to let go of the day, to enter sleep without the weight of dust or worry. The tools on the table, mirror, comb, coal pot, gleamed softly in the dying light, as if remembering every hand that had touched them, every life that had passed through their care. Outside, the Nile moved steadily under the stars, reflecting the same quiet discipline. It did not rush. It simply flowed, washing, renewing, returning. And in the stillness of the Egyptian night, one could almost feel how every gesture of cleanliness, every polished surface, every careful breath was part of the same eternal motion, the pursuit of harmony, the keeping of order, the art of remaining quietly human. Jamestown, settlement, hunger, tobacco, labor, and self-governance. The sea had been grey for months, wind carried the smell of salt and wood rot, and the men aboard the 3 small ships, Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery, had stopped counting the days. When land finally appeared, it was not gold or glory that met them, but the quiet edge of a wide river and the thick breath of a marsh. They named it James River, after their king. They built their hope upon its muddy shore and called it Jamestown. The ground was soft and wet, the kind that swallowed boots. The air buzzed with insects that seemed to come from every direction. Water shimmered nearby, but it was brackish, half salt, half mud. Still, it was a beginning. The men dragged timber from the woods, hammered it together into walls, and called it a fort. They dug shallow wells, raised tents, and set small fires to keep the night at bay. The heat arrived first, a heavy, unmoving heat that pressed against the skin and made the air thick with gnats. Mosquitoes hovered above the swamp water, biting until skin turned raw. The men, used to London streets or English farmlands, did not understand this world. They worked slowly, drank river water when the barrels ran dry, and grew sick. Their bellies cramped, their skin yellowed. But they kept building, a wall, a roof, a fire pit, one plank at a time. At night, they sat around the flames, their faces drawn, their voices quiet. Beyond the fort's thin wooden walls, the forest moved, rustling, breathing, alive with eyes they could not see. They spoke of England, of bread and beer, of wives and children. Some still believed the ships would soon return full of riches. Others had already begun to doubt. But doubt was dangerous here, so they swallowed it, like bad water, and kept working. By the first summer, the supplies from the ships had begun to vanish. Flour turned moldy. The salted meat smelled wrong. Hunger arrived like another settler, uninvited but staying. They tried to fish in the river, but the fish were few. They hunted in the woods, but the woods were vast and silent. Each day was measured not by progress, but by how long the body could keep standing. When sickness spread, they buried the dead quickly, often at dusk, sometimes without words. The sound of shovels in wet soil became part of the evening air. Still, every morning brought another small task, mending a fence, felling a tree, fetching water. It was not courage that kept them there, it was habit, the quiet rhythm of survival. The people who already lived along the river, the Powhatan, watched from a distance. They knew the land, the seasons, the rules of this place. The English did not. And though there were moments of trade, corn for copper, bread for beads, there was also fear on both sides. The newcomers brought strange tools, strange clothes, strange hunger. Yet the Powhatan also saw something else, men desperate enough to build a home in a swamp. When the first winter came, the river froze near its edges, trapping small fish in a thin shell of ice. The wind grew sharp, cutting through tents and into bones. The wooden walls creaked, and the fires smoked more than they burned. Food grew scarce. Some boiled leather for broth, some ate roots or bark, others waited for the supply ship that never seemed to come. But even in the worst of it, they did not all give up. A few still rose each dawn, went to the shore, and watched the fog drift low over the river. They saw the same sun climb the same sky, pale and slow, and they believed because believing cost nothing. When spring returned, it brought green to the marshes and life to the trees. The dead were many, but the living began again. They patched the walls, dug new wells, cleared more land. The fort took shape, rough but sturdy, like the people who built it. They had learned the rhythm of this place, the sound of frogs in the evening, the way the mist rose at dawn, the feel of the wind before rain. They no longer spoke of gold, they spoke of corn, of fishing nets, of soil that might, with care, bear food. What had begun as an adventure had turned into something quieter, a long endurance, a test of patience and will. At night, when the wind moved through the trees, they could almost believe the land was listening. The firelight flickered over their faces, softening the lines of hunger and fatigue. Someone might hum a tune from home, and for a moment, the fort felt less like exile, more like a place to live. The world beyond remained vast and uncertain, but within the walls there was structure, rough beams, smoke curling from a fire, a wooden cup half filled with river water. The smallest comforts became sacred. A loaf of bread, still warm. A pot of stew shared between three. The whisper of a familiar word. Every night ended the same way. The fire burned low, the talk faded, and the forest took back its sound. Insects droned. The river lapped softly at the shore. A wolf howled far away, then silence returned. It was in that silence that Jamestown was truly born, not from conquest or riches, but from the steady breath of people who refused to stop. The fort stood fragile, but it stood. Inside, beneath thin blankets and under stars they did not know by name, the settlers slept. Their dreams were not of gold or glory now, but of bread, clean water, and the hope that tomorrow would come with less hunger. And somewhere in the dark, the river kept flowing, slow, brown, eternal, watching over the beginning of a new world. Morning returned slowly to the fort, a pale grey light slipping between the gaps in the wooden walls. The men rose stiffly, their hands blistered, their stomachs hollow, but quiet. They no longer asked how long they would stay. They only asked what work needed to be done before nightfall. Somewhere in those first fragile months, Jamestown had found its rule. He that will not work shall not eat. It was not spoken with cruelty. It was simply the rhythm of life now. The ones who dug the wells drank. The ones who cut wood stayed warm. Those who waited for help often did not last long enough to see it arrive. So they worked. They worked through heat and mud, through fever and rain. They planted, they patched, they hunted, they built. The sound of labor became the new kind of prayer. Slow, steady, wordless. When Captain John Smith took charge, he brought more than orders. He brought motion. He mapped the river, tracing its curves with careful lines, sketching the inlets where fish swam and where reeds grew thick. He sent small groups out beyond the fort to learn where the land rose, where it flooded, where the trees thinned enough for planting. The maps were rough, drawn on scraps of parchment, but they were promises. Proof that the world around them could be known. Trade with the Powhatan people continued, cautious but vital. Copper, beads, and tools were exchanged for corn and dried fish. Each meeting was a negotiation between fear and necessity. Sometimes gifts were enough. Sometimes the threat of muskets spoke louder. Still they found ways to live side by side, bound not by friendship, but by survival. By the second summer, the fort had grown sturdier, the men had grown harder, the graves outside the wall had multiplied, but so had the fields. The air now carried the smell of wet earth, smoke, and something faintly green, the scent of crops beginning to take hold. Among these new plantings was a curious leaf brought by a young man named John Rolfe. He called it tobacco. At first, no one paid much attention. The plant was strange, tall with broad leaves that caught the morning light. But when dried and burned, its smoke curled in the air like incense, sweet and sharp. Some said it smelled like home, like the taverns of London, like memory itself. Others simply saw that people would pay for it. The soil of Virginia, it turned out, loved tobacco. It grew quickly, deeply, endlessly. The men who survived the early hunger soon turned their hands from digging graves to digging furrows. The swamp that had nearly killed them began to turn green with rows of leaves. The work was endless. The plants needed tending, drying, packing, shipping, but it was a kind of work that promised reward, not just endurance. For the first time, Jamestown had something to send back across the ocean. Something England wanted. The smell of hope drifted with the smoke from the drying sheds. Yet with the hope came new hunger. Not for food this time, but for land, for labor, for more. Tobacco drank from the soil until it left it dry. To grow more, they cleared the woods, pushing deeper into the territory of the Powhatan. And to harvest it, they needed hands. More than their own. At first, new settlers arrived, drawn by the promise of profit. Some were craftsmen, some laborers, some simply desperate. Many came as indentured servants, bound to years of labor in exchange for passage. They worked the fields from dawn until the last light, their sweat mixing with the red dust of the land. Some earned their freedom after years. Many did not. Still, the colony began to change. Timber houses replaced tents, fields stretched further. Smoke from hearth fires rose in thin, steady lines. The sound of hammers, saws, and human breath filled the air. Life no longer hung on the edge of collapse. It simply continued. Rough, rhythmic, real. Captain Smith, before returning to England, left behind not peace but persistence. His maps became guides for those who stayed. His rule, work, or starve became the unspoken creed of the settlement. The people of Jamestown had learned that survival was not won by strength, but by steadiness. In the evenings, after the day's labor, the fields glowed with the last light. The river ran quietly beside them, its surface smooth and golden. The air smelled of smoke and leaves. They sat together, the farmers, the servants, the men who had once called themselves gentlemen. There were no titles here anymore, only names, faces, and hands that had learned to hold tools instead of dreams. The nights grew softer. Sometimes they heard drums in the distance from the native villages along the river. Sometimes only the frogs answered. The fort no longer felt like a prison. It had become a settlement, small, fragile, but alive. When a ship finally arrived from England, it brought not gold or rescue, but more mouths to feed, more tools, more ambition. The captain wrote that Jamestown was thriving. In truth, it was surviving, and that was enough. The barrels filled with tobacco began their long journey home, and with them the idea of a new kind of wealth, drawn not from mines or conquest, but from the patient rhythm of work. There was no celebration, no grand moment of triumph. Only the steady sound of wind moving through leaves, the quiet splash of water against the riverbank, and the faint crackle of drying tobacco in the sheds. Each man who looked upon those green fields saw something different. To some, it was fortune. To others, it was burden. But all of them felt the same quiet certainty, that this place, harsh and unforgiving, had begun to belong to them, and they to it. And as the moon rose over the river, silver and wide, the land seemed to breathe with them. Slow, cautious, but alive. Jamestown had endured, the world had changed, not with fanfare, but with the steady whisper of leaves drying in the wind. By the time the fields of tobacco began to sway in the wind, Jamestown had changed. The fort had become a village, its fences stronger, its people quieter, its rhythm more certain. Work had shaped them, the soil had marked them, and the colony now breathed like a living thing, fragile yet enduring. But the earth demanded more hands to till, to plant, to harvest. At first, those hands came from Europe, men and women who crossed the sea, not for fortune, but for passage. They were called indentured servants, bound by paper and promised to labor for years in exchange for freedom. They worked the land until their backs bent, until their time was done, then vanished into the forests to begin again. Yet, in the summer of 1619, a new ship arrived. Quiet, unremarkable, carrying people who had not chosen the voyage. 20 and odd souls from Africa, traded for food and supplies. Their names were not written down, but their presence changed the rhythm of the colony forever. They did not work for passage. They did not have years to count down. Their lives, and the lives of those who would follow, became bound to the land itself. That same year, in a small wooden building near the river, another kind of beginning took shape. The settlers gathered to elect men from among them, burgesses, to speak, to argue, to decide. It was a modest room, filled with heat and flies, but in that space, voices rose for the first time to make laws of their own. The first assembly, the seed of self-governance, was planted beside the same river that carried ships and shadows. Two beginnings side by side, one born of choice, one born of chains. The colony grew, tobacco fields spread wider, eating into the woods and the villages of the Powhatan. Trade turned to tension, then to violence. Raids and reprisals blurred into the rhythm of seasons. But still the settlers built, planted and rebuilt. Disease came and went, famine followed flood, and yet the fort stood. At night, the fires burned low, casting light over faces marked by work and time. Some dreamed of wealth, others dreamed of rest. None could have known how deep the roots they had planted would reach. Roots of governance, of commerce, and of division. By the river, barrels of tobacco waited for ships. Beyond the fort, the forest stretched dark and endless. Somewhere in that stillness, the colony's future had already begun. In the quiet hands that tilled its soil, in the words spoken in that small assembly hall, and in the unrecorded names carried by the tide. Jamestown endured. And in its endurance, it left behind more than a settlement. It left the beginning of a country, strong, ambitious, and haunted by its own reflection. The night has grown still. The stories that drifted through the hours now rest like ash after a quiet fire. The echoes of distant lives fade, the wedding by the muddy field, the soft hum of a lyre beneath an ancient roof, the scent of oil along the Nile, the slow breath of settlers beside a silent river. Each belonged to a different time, yet together they form one rhythm. Steady, gentle, unbroken. Somewhere beyond the room, the world continues its quiet turning. The wind moves softly through unseen trees. Water finds its path. Stone holds its chill. The same earth that once held their footsteps now holds ours too. Calm, patient, remembering. You can let your body grow heavy now. Let the air settle. There is nothing left to hold. The people of these stories worked, washed, sang, and built their lives beneath the same sky you see tonight. The centuries between you are thinner than they seem. So breathe. Let the sounds fade into distance. The murmur of old voices, the clatter of wood, the whisper of rivers, they dissolve like dust into stillness. The world becomes smaller, quieter, kinder. In the soft dark, time folds gently. The wedding feast cools. The Nile darkens. The river near Jamestown slows. Everything rests. And you are drifting now, with them. The night wraps around you like a calm sea. The stories sleep, and so do you.